Hey guys, before I go ahead and put this new harmonic balancer on, I just thought it would be fun to compare and contrast the old one with the new one. And you know, since I took this one out, I just can't believe it's like it's been falling apart more. I think it was so oil soaked, and now the oil is drying out and everything's starting to crack. But I think I mentioned earlier in the video, you know, there is a line you're supposed to check. You can see right here and make sure this line lines up. And then you're also supposed to check that the rubber in the inside hasn't squished out. And you know, I don't really know whether this is the way they originally made or not, but I mean, compare how much rubber has squished out here compared to the newer one. So besides the fact that the newer one is obviously cleaner in this case, I mean, this just looks horrible. So we're going to go ahead and install the new one. All right, guys, we're back at it, and I just wanted to go over a few things about installing the timing cover and just stuff more for guys that are new at this. The first thing, I did install the harmonic balancer. I think I showed the old one, but when you install that gasket, I just want to show you this. You know, you're going to lose some space between the timing cover and the harmonic balancer. So I guess I should say check for clearances or be aware of clearances. So I think we're going to be perfectly fine, but if I hear a loud grinding noise when I first start this thing, I'll shut the truck off immediately, climb under and make sure I'm not rubbing anything. But again, I know we're perfectly fine. You know, but things move out a little bit. And, you know, the cover moving out a bit on the crankshaft is actually a good thing if you're not doing a wear sleeve, because what you'll end up doing, I got this tip from the heavy equipment guy, was if you're not doing a new wear sleeve, by using the gasket, you'll push it out and you'll actually end up with the oil seal, the main seal, you know, touching a different part of the crankshaft farther out, so hopefully it won't leak. Personally, I do things more by the book, but I just wanted to share that. So, let's see what else. The next thing is I was watching the video of me installing that seal, and the one thing I did wrong was, you know, that piece of plastic that goes around the crankshaft there, you know, the guide, you really should wait to pull that out until you get all the bolts completely torqued, and that way you can make sure to have, you know, uniform spacing of the seal around the shaft there. I hand tightened my bolts, and I think I just hand tightened and then I pulled it out. I honestly was nervous just about getting it out. I don't know why. But if I was going to do it again, knowing what I know now, I would leave that not the wear sleeve, the piece of plastic that guides the seal over the shaft, I would leave that in place until everything was torqued down completely. And the last thing I would do is just pull that out. And I'm pretty sure we did talk about, you know, you never want to just start tightening down bolts all the way. And I know anybody doing this job probably knows this stuff by now, but you would never put this on and just torque this all the way. You would hand tighten all the bolts around it, then you might use a wrench to snug them up, then you would go back and start torquing. Other thing just to note is I did remove my barring tool since I installed the harmonic balancer. You don't want to leave that in the truck. I may have lost some sleep worrying about that, but from what I hear, hopefully I'll never see, you don't want to start a car or truck with a barring tool installed. And then one thing I do want to mention about blue Loctite, which I learned, you know, doing research, was it actually works as corrosion prevention as well. So if you have a bolt that you know, you're going to have to take off down the road, if you put some of the blue Loctite on the threads, that will keep it from you know, getting rust in the threads and getting stuck. And even though blue Loctite may not be the tightest Loctite out there, it'll help to snug your bolts, but it also helps with removing the bolts. I did install a new belt tensioner. I just couldn't help myself. And then I did go through on the where the pulley goes, you know, where the thing that holds the pulley. You know, I did hit these with the pressure washer. There was a bit of rust in there, so I just took one of the bolts and put some oil on it, and I ran it in and out a couple times and loosened up the rust. And then I put a rag over it with an air gun and blew out some of the rust. So hopefully these holes are a little bit cleaner, and we're ready to go ahead and start putting the stuff back on. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was about this RTV Ultra Gray. You know, this is where I mixed it, and I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I mean, this stuff really, it's really sticky, and it's not hard. It's definitely pliable, but you know, it's not going anywhere. I mean, I don't know if you can see how, you know, this never touched the box, but it's on there pretty good. So, you know, I was doing some research on that as well, and if you were going to install that cover without the gasket, which is the way the manufacturer recommends, with Ultra Gray, what you do is you apply a bead to the cover, you put the cover on right away while it's still wet, and then you tighten it just until the RTV starts to squeeze out. And then you basically wait an hour for the RTV to sit up, the Ultra Gray RTV. And then after an hour, you tighten it to torque. And I gotta say, based on what I know now, I was kind of intimidated by the RTV, but I don't think it would be that big a deal, you know, besides getting the size of the bead right to do. And I'm sure you could go on YouTube and watch some videos by Permatex about laying the bead, but you know, I have no regrets about the way I did it. You know, I'm pretty sure if I did it again, I would do it the exact same way, but you know, apparently this RTV, you know, if you use it, you don't need to use gaskets. So so that's where we are. So I'm going to see if I can get this piece on, get that pulley back on, and you know, see where we end up. I feel like it's the downhill run, but you know, I'm running out of steam, and I just don't want to rush through it to get it started and miss something. So I'm being very meticulous, or you know, I'm taking it step by step. So we'll keep moving forward step by step and show you where we are. One other thing I did do, I forgot to mention, was I just got some of that Rustoleum rust converter. So there's 2 light coats of rust converter right over there where it's rusting. Put some blue tape on the steering gear, and I put some of the rust converter over there as well. And I did clean up that one ground while I'm in there. I don't really think the rust converter is going to do that much. There's a little bit more here. Put this cable back on where it belongs. There just was a lot of rust starting over there, so I thought if I could slow it down a bit. And I've heard a lot of guys have trouble with rust in here, but my truck has been leaking oil for so long that there really is none. So then the last thing I did is I just got some simple green and a nylon brush, and I used the hose as well to just clean off as much of the oil underneath as I could, which I probably should have done before I installed the seal, but I just wanted to get it, you know, everything underneath there, right in here, as clean as I possibly could. So if this thing ever starts leaking in the future, I can do something about it right away, and you know, I'll notice it very easily. All right, guys, I got the pulley back on, and you know, the issues I was having with me messing up the threads and my friend cleaning them up, everything came out perfectly fine. I got these torqued down well, so I'm feeling pretty good about the pulley. And listen, spins nice, don't hear any grinding. But I do just want to do a little PSA here. The pulley, you know, again, I use that gasket on the timing cover. I mean, boy, it's close to this bolt. It's got clearance, there's no grinding, but it's close, so, you know, I have to kind of shove the piece of cardboard in to get it behind there. But just, you know, if you use the gasket, watch your clearances and proceed at your own risk, okay, guys? Alright guys, let's see if we can go ahead and replace this windshield washer pump. And it was a bit of a struggle to get it out. I mean, I could have just manhandled it, but I tried to be careful so I didn't break the windshield washer bottle, and I think we did succeed in not breaking that. So I did order this one online, and I think I said this was probably going to be around 20 bucks. I think it was only 15 or 16 bucks. And I saw AC Delco, and I just couldn't help myself. I had to order AC Delco for my Dodge. And you know, every time I walk by the garage, I look at this AC Delco, and I just think to myself, you know, maybe all these car manufacturers are selling, you know, very similar to the same thing. We look good. It's just the marketing department changes the way things are listed, so it seems different. I don't know. All right, they gave us a new grommet, although the old grommet looks a lot nicer. Just a lot more lip. I hope that's in focus. There's just a lot more lip on the old one than there is on the new one. Kind of liking the old one. So maybe the Sil Glide will help us to install it, and maybe we'll also just lubricate the rubber a little bit, keep it around longer. Alright, this is probably going to be a bit of a fight, but I think I need a screwdriver to push that in a little bit. Maybe the secret is to put the rubber in first and then slide the pump in. Yeah, that was much better. So there we go. Good as new. Another thing I just wanted to mention was this stuff called Sil Glide. I watch a channel called Watch Wes Work. He works on anything from heavy equipment to cars to farm equipment. And I watched him use this Sil Glide basically anywhere where there's an O-ring. It's just like silicone. I think he uses it on brakes too. But this stuff is awesome. You know, if you've got O-rings or you just want to lubricate some silicone, really good stuff. So I keep that on the shelf. And another thing he taught me about, which, you know, when I put this back on the truck for this connection, I know you could use dielectric grease to keep water out, but I just went down to Napa and I ordered something called Truck Light, which is a corrosion preventative compound, which I think is very similar to dielectric grease, but it just it seemed like a good idea. So I do want to thank Watch Wes Work for sharing the knowledge, and you know, maybe you guys can use this knowledge too. Another tool I bought for this job was this tubing cutter, hose cutter. You can buy replaceable blades for it. But what I did is where the windshield washer tube was, you know, I don't know if you guys can see here, I just cut it just inside the nipple. So I'm only losing maybe a ½ inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch of the hose. So we should have plenty left to work with, that it's not going to, you know, I won't have to put a new piece of hose in. And then another thing I did just want to touch on too, and I know I mentioned this already, and this is common knowledge to guys that do this a lot, you know, about using the bags to store your bolts. And then what I've been doing is if I go out and buy some replacement bolts, I'll throw them in the bag so when the time comes, I can find them. But I went out yesterday and I've been using Glad quart freezer bags, and they have this nice strip on top. And you can just take your Sharpie and write there. Well, I went out to BJ's yesterday and they only had Ziploc. And I guess I didn't look hard enough. I thought maybe they didn't have an area to write, but they do, luckily. So I guess the only tip I want to give you is if you're going in your wife's kitchen or going to buy bags to store nuts and bolts, make sure they've got a good area, which I guess Ziploc and Glad do, so maybe they all do now. you know, make sure they got a good area to write on, so you can write what the heck it is. It takes a little longer when you're taking things apart, but I haven't had to fumble through a bucket of nuts and bolts the whole way back. I just get to a part, grab a bag, take them out, and keep going. So, oh, it's also a lot harder to lose a bag full of bolts than a tray full of bolts where you drop it once and they're all over the place. So again, I just think this is an awesome idea. You know, not if you're doing something small, but for something more involved. Really like this idea. All right, guys, we are getting very close. Got the batteries hooked up again. Got the cable on top of the radiator back on. Got my hoses on. So all I really want to do now is just, and this is just me, I'm just going to put some water, distilled water, in the radiator and run it till it gets hot and basically flush it. Then drain all the water and put the coolant in. But this way I can drain out any junk that I may have created when I flushed it out the first time. And also if there's any leaks, then I won't be dripping antifreeze all over the place. So, so this is where we are. We got everything back together. It amazes me how tight things are now that the shroud is on and the fan, you know, everything's in there. Got a nice shiny new radiator. Hopefully it's got no leaks. And we're pretty much good to go. And then there is one thing I do just want to show you guys as usual. When I was taking this apart, I really had a lot of trouble with the clamp down there for the hose. So what I ended up doing, you know, I did order regular spring clamps to replace what we had, but then I did a little more research and I got what is called a constant tension clamp. So this one is made by Gates, and it actually, so it's got a nut, and you tighten it with a nut, but you tighten it to a certain torque so you don't over tighten it and squeeze the hose or under tighten it and have leaks. But it's got, you know, some kind of a spring built into it, so it keeps a constant tension. So, you know, no matter how much the coolant heats up, or in the winter when you start it and it's below freezing and then the engine heats up, this thing will keep the same tension, the constant tension, the same as the regular spring clamps. So I got these off of Rock Auto by Gates, and it is called a constant tension clamp. And then just to show you guys, you know, I'm not sure if you can see in there, but you know, you can torque it down with an extension. There we go. You can torque it down with an extension from up top. So if I ever have to take this hose off, I can just put an extension on, get in there, loosen it up, slide it back, and, you know, hopefully the hose will come off. But you know, there's your extension, which if I had to guess, I'd say that's about 18 inches. And then I did use, you know, again, I did use the constant tension hose clamps. You know, there's 4 clamps, no big deal. But to just not have to mess with spring clamps anymore, it was well worth it. So let me see if I can get some water in this thing, some distilled water in this thing. I do need to go to the auto parts store and pick up some of that protector I talked about for the windshield washer bottle. Put a little fluid, not too much, in case it is leaking, in the windshield washer fluid bottle, and then hopefully I can start it up. She works, guys. Filled her with distilled water. Took just shy of 5 gallons, maybe 5 gallons. what I did is I just undid the 3 bolts on the thermostat, poured the distilled water in the coolant tank, and waited for it to get to the top. And unfortunately, when it did get to the top where the thermostat is, there was a lot of flecks of like rust and stuff in there. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up draining the tank and then putting more distilled water. Like I'll flush it a few times to get all that junk out of there. But I took it for like a 20-25 minute ride, and you know, I've got nothing against Honda CR-Vs, and I do kind of like it, but boy, there's just something about that diesel. Really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a piece of cardboard under the truck, see if there's any oil leaks in the morning, see if there's any water leaks in the morning. I'll probably call my friend and ask him if I should run some kind of a flush through the radiator. I don't really know if I should or I shouldn't, because I don't want to kick up too much more junk. But really running, you know, she's running good. Much cooler. You know, it took me a while to get it up to temperature, and I never really got it above 190, because as soon as the thermostat opened, it would actually go down like 10 degrees. You know, it was just there. I think when I loosened the cable, my overdrive, trucks this age, sometimes I have trouble shifting into overdrive. I put a cable, there's one ground, I put a cable in. That was giving me a little bit of trouble, but she's running good. You know, let's focus on one thing at a time. So she's running good. So all that's left now is a few flushes, 2-3 flushes. Figure out what type of coolant to use on this sucker. Top her off with coolant. Wait a few days, change the oil, and then hope she doesn't leak and call her good. All right, guys, we'll see you soon.